My current research is an attempt to understand in somewhat similar fashion new landscapes developing around the effort to produce more scientists and engineers in the U.S. In this context, the struggle is instantiated in multiple ways, including educational practices and policies intended to increase the number and diversity of young Americans who study science, engineering, technology, and mathematics, the so-called STEM fields. It's also instantiated in efforts to develop higher levels of proficiency and expertise in these STEM areas and to encourage more people to go into these fields, jobs, and careers. Encouraging more culturally diverse Americans and more Americans in general to pursue STEM fields is described as a national priority to improve global competitiveness by developing, by the possibility of developing innovations that the markets want and will pay for. It's also described as a national priority to protect national security so that we don't have to rely on foreign workers as much as we do to do sensitive jobs. It's also described as a way to decrease economic inequality because at least some STEM jobs are well-paying with projected availability and growth in the near future. Schools have been assigned the job of getting this work done. And I would say that arguably in improved and increased STEM education, especially for groups historically marginalized in the US economy, has become the primary focus of school reform in the US today. Thus, the push for STEM expansion and diversity has landed in schools and in the lives of many students and parents who have never considered and know very little about STEM jobs or careers. They have learned that they should want these things, but they're not at all sure what they are. I'm curious about the effects of this national rhetoric and the policies and programs flowing from it. And these are some of the questions that I have about this. What do these activities lead to, for whom, and at what cost? Who or what is being advantaged or disadvantaged? What happens on the ground for particular people and groups caught up in this social project? Now, clearly in this case, political rhetoric about economic competitiveness has been joined to a discourse about new opportunities, new economic opportunities for historically marginalized groups. The connection very nicely brings together two opposing streams in contemporary US politics. Those on the right, for whom economic growth is a priority, and those on the left, for whom equal opportunity and access is salient. However, policies motivated by this this emergent political discourse have, in actual fact, identified underrepresented groups already in college STEM for the lion's share of support and benefits. This group, which is historically quite small, so these are underrepresented students, underrepresented groups in STEM, people who have already begun college in a STEM field. This is where the benefits from this legislation or these policies have so far been directed. This group, historically quite small, can have only minimal effect on expanding and diversifying STEM. The much larger number of underrepresented high school students who demonstrate interest in STEM but do not pursue these fields in college is virtually ignored in this funding stream. Thus, by appropriating the discourse of STEM diversity, politicians and policymakers place themselves on the side of what is just and end up benefiting a few while simultaneously perpetuating the ongoing disadvantage of many. This is a moral victory of the kind that Lancaster is talking about, a moral accomplishment on behalf of equality that hides consequential inequalities. In my ongoing study, my colleagues and I are investigating how 50 high-achieving and low-income young women of color are experiencing this national agenda for STEM expansion and diversity in their high school and post-high school lives. We're finding that in many cases, these women's interests and accomplishments in STEM areas are made virtually invisible in the context of high school activities and college recruitment. Hardly anyone paid any attention to them. The young women found little or none of what Brandt and others have called sponsorship or legitimation for STEM interests and accomplishments, especially in engineering, physics, or chemistry. Few or limited scholarships were offered to them. No college recruiters came to call. No high school or college counselors stressed to them the special opportunities in fields like engineering. And this is in spite of the fact that these young women had demonstrated very high grades in high school math and science. Most had families who encouraged their STEM interests, at least in general. And further, all of the young women participated for 3 years in a high school after-school program that I and my team designed and ran, in which they initiated and carried out their own small-scale engineering projects. And clearly, all of them, had they gone into STEM, would have added diversity, at least superficially, to STEM. Yet only a handful of these high-achieving young women who had very good grades, had good ACT scores, had done actual engineering work, had worked with mentors who helped them learn more about engineering and help them with their engineering products. Only a handful of them actually went into college engineering or a non-medical science field. Some of them did not go to college at all. Those who did go to college in engineering or non-medical science field, all but one switched out before the end of her freshman year. And I just want to, these are some pictures of the young women who experienced this.